So what we're gonna do is we took the 3 best questions that we thought would be the most beneficial, and I'm gonna start off asking those, and then after those 3 questions are asked, we're gonna open it up to the audience. Okay, so the first question for you guys, and anybody could take this. Actually, first, let's introduce yourselves. Yeah.
Sure. Denise Kolpak, Deputy Mayor.
Michelle Turnberg, City Commissioner.
Tim Mahoney, Mayor of Fargo.
And Michael Redlinger, City Administrator.
Okay, so the first question we have for you guys are, what are you doing right now to make Fargo a better place?
We'll start ladies first.
Okay, I'll start. Thank you. It's a great question, whoever asked that question. You know, I think as an elected representative of the city of Fargo, I think to make it better is to listen to the citizens of Fargo, to be responsive, and to work on real solutions that solve real problems. You know, one of my favorite sayings of an elected I heard probably 20 years ago now is our job is more than to define a problem, it's to find solutions to solve a problem. And sometimes that means you have to really dig in and understand the facts and talk to people and make the best decision you can with the information that you have. So that would be my response.
Do you want from each of us?
If you have anything to add, yeah, you can obviously add.
I think every day, every city department is working to try and make the city of Fargo better. So you'll find that everyone in every one of our departments is truly dedicated to what they do, to their job and to the city, and really a great group of people to work with. As Commissioner Kolpak said, we're elected officials, so it's our responsibility to represent the people of Fargo. So it could be a myriad of different issues that are coming up that we discuss, talk about, and vote on, and try and make it better for the aggregate group.
So this is a great city. I'm serious when I say that and tell you guys that. I go to a meeting every year with 30 mayors from across the country. And every time I come away, of course, the first time I went there, they said, "You're from Fargo." That's a place where they say, "Oofda." And I said, "Oh, come on, that's not our best reputation." We had a movie about us. But the really idea of the town is the fact that we're growing. We're a community that's growing 20% in the last 10 years. What do you do with that growth and what happens? And what keeps me awake at night is how I'm going to attract all you people to stay in Fargo. So what are we going to offer in this community that makes the people want to live here and stay here? And that's really what you have to do. A couple of us talked about New York City. We talked about different cities in the state, in the nation. And what I love about you is your eyes are all open. You're full of energy. You're full of a lot of stuff, right? But you got to look into the world and find out what makes you tick and what makes you happy about the community. We discovered what people want in this community is good places to live, entertainment, places to raise their kids, places where they felt comfortable, and places in which you all can interact and have way to grow together. And otherwise, a lot of times you go to another city to find that. So we're trying to find a way of how do we attract people, keep people, and make this the place you want to live.
And I would just add, I want to thank you all for the great conversations around the room. I really appreciated that. It was good to hear from you authentically about what's on the top of your mind. I would just say this, every single day in everything we do, we are trying to find the absolute best talent to advance the organization and advance the community. This is about community, it's about people, and it's about finding the right people to help it really move us forward. And so I would say from the staff perspective, not being an elected official, I would say that we are very, very fortunate that we have a team of over 1,000 full-time employees that every single day are dedicated to doing the best they can for this entire community. And I would just also say this, we are the regional leader. And part of that comes with the responsibility of being a larger community, but part of it is just the thought leadership and the strategy that comes out of this building is really thoughtful. And it's something that I think that our other communities really look to us to try find that leadership for the metropolitan area. So really proud of that, really proud of our staff team and all the great people we've been able to identify and continue to identify to come work for Team Fargo.
And Mike wants to thank the panel we were with. They unanimously voted to keep him. I put the choices, you want to fire him or keep him, and they all voted for him. So, Mike, you still have your job.
All right, so our next question is there a way to make more safe third places for teens?
More safer?
More safe third places.
You guys want to start again, or?
Well, you know, one of our primary responsibilities is the public safety of the citizens of Fargo, and our fire and our first responders and our police departments are obviously critical to that, but really it's every department has a part in that, and has a role to play in that. And so, you know, it's to continue to support the work of the Team Fargo, and to Michael and to Commissioner Turnberg's point, that really is the gem of what makes Fargo hum every day. So it's, in my opinion, continuing that support. Yes, we have, as the city grows, we're going to have more needs, especially in the area of public safety. We just added 50 new firefighters in South Fargo because of the growth, which helps keep us safe and improves response times. But we're also going to need to continue to have police officers as well as we continue. But then also the collaboration, for instance, we see with the work being done in the mobile outreach team downtown, because, some people with some mental health needs, and I know that was one of your topics this morning, along with unhoused, but also the addiction issues we're seeing in the community, or other mental health crises. There are other ways that we can intervene that don't require a police or firefighter to be the first responder. And I'll end with this, and it's all ages, but it's got to start early. And one of the initiatives in the next legislative session will be going, with the help of a number of people, will be soliciting our local area legislators to have a county diversion center where we have a place with people experiencing mental health crises to go to get the right kind of help and alleviate the pressure and the strain we're seeing in our jails and on our police, fire, and first responders. So I'll end there.
As far as keeping or making Fargo safer, you could see today that both our fire chief and police chief were here interacting with you guys, and they're a big part of our community, and we have top-notch first responders, police, fire, EMS. So that's really important that we, keep our first responders up to date with the latest equipment, and support their roles because they're so critical. We did just last week open a brand new firehouse down south, not too far from Davies, for those of you that attend that high school. So every day the city staff is working to make sure that its residents are safe, and those are some of our biggest contributors.
Two parts to that question is, number one, you have the training. We train our officers very well, and fire and police, I think, are one of the best departments in the nation as far as they know the rules, they know what happens. But the second part of that is citizen involvement. It really helps that citizens get involved, that you are part of that. So in my neighborhood, I'm cognitive of when my neighbor's gone, kind of watch the house a little bit, do those different things. But if you find a lot of the crimes we solve nowadays, it's from citizen participation. You see a fight, you see what's going on. And I always hate it because people put cameras in my face, but you can take a camera picture of what's going on half the time. That's how we solve a lot of things sometimes. The second part of that is yourselves just be good citizens. I mean, you can race and drive fast and do the different things, but you can say the speed limit as well. So if we're just respectful of each other as neighbors and try to be good neighbors to each other, I think that helps a lot. What we've done with our police force now, we have an engagement center in which so many people come out, and somebody who's a mental health illness or addiction issue goes out there and addresses that issue with that person. So that's much better than having a police officer sit for an hour with somebody until they get help. So it's a community issue. So safety to me is all of us work on that.
And I would just add that it's going to continue to evolve. As a growing community, we know that there's going to continue to be challenges as we spread further and further apart from the core center of the city. And so part of that is going to look like different enforcement tools that perhaps we haven't had in the last few years. And I'll just say one is going to be a new traffic safety unit that is now underway in Fargo. So we know that as new drivers, that as you're out on the roads, you expect to have a safe Fargo. And I know that our traffic safety team is doing everything it can to try and make sure that the experience to save for all of our drivers, all of our pedestrians, and making sure that we're taking care of some chronically bad driver behaviors and making sure that those people are getting ticketed and are seeing our presence and feeling that presence so that they know that we're watching that. And so you're going to see a real deliberate focus on that in the next couple of years. We look forward to watching some of those results, but especially for those of you that are traveling in that South Fargo area to Davies and some of those emerging neighborhoods, we know that those speeds have been up there, and so we think that a good investment in safety for our newest drivers in the community is that traffic safety unit.
All right, so our last question before we open it up to the attendees is, how will we fix the problem of homelessness?
So homelessness is an extremely complex issue, and I would tell you that every community across the country has been dealing with this, and it's been multiplied since the pandemic, and there are a number of reasons for that. In our community, one of the biggest two is evictions are up. Some of the funds that were there during the pandemic have been dried up, and so it's causing evictions to go up. And then there are a number of mental health crises and issues that are also contributing to that as well. And so the solutions have to be multi-layered. And I would argue that it also should be a regional effort to support this cause, because we're the largest city in the area. We do have the largest unhoused population, and we provide more services, but everyone should be contributing to that. And so I think the state has a larger role in helping support that work as well. But having said that, I think it starts by being intentional, understanding what are the rules that are enforceable, but with a philosophy first and foremost of housing first. And I think we've adopted that as a city. We're working on that. Right now we have a housing shortage. But how are we going to be intentional about finding more affordable housing, helping people stay in their homes that are close to losing their homes is another part of that initiative, but really being strategic in the services we can provide at the, because they are taxpayer, whether it's at the state or the local level, we have limited resources. So what's the most strategic way we can help people get into housing so they can get the help that they need?
I think this question alone could fill up your entire day. It's one of the main topics that we discuss at our city commission meetings. It's in various departments, probably every day, on how to tackle this and how we can improve our community and improve the lives of those that are homeless and also residents. I will say that I do not think that this is just Fargo's issue. It's people are coming from around the region, around the state, around the country, and coming here. And we are providing services, but those services cost money. And we don't have an endless pot that we can just keep drawing from. So I think it is important that and hopefully the legislators will work with us and help with state funding, even metro-wide. I think it's important, West Fargo, Moorhead. I mean, we're all dealing with the same, there's no borders when the towns change, right? So we're all dealing with the same issues. So I don't think it's just a Fargo problem. I think it's a citywide, state, nationwide problem that we need to really dive in head first. And like Commissioner Kolpak said, we do have the Housing First initiative that we're working on to help get people into permanent housing. So it's not just putting a Band-Aid on the problem and getting people through the day, but hopefully finding a way for them to live independently and on their own.
You guys have articulated this pretty well. I don't know if I'm going to add much more to it, but the reality is that the economy is such in the nation that we see more homelessness. We're a city that has an unemployment rate of 2%. What does that mean? Is we have most people employed. It's a great place to come to. What does that do? That attracts people. Last 10 years, we grew by 20%. So we drew a lot of people into our community. Some were able to find work, some were not. When that happens, we have 800 to 1,000 people every night that are homeless that find shelter. We have what I call the hardcore that are harder to find shelter, about 50 to 60 people. Whenever we've talked to any experts, that's doable. We can figure that out. So when we say housing first, we want to get somebody to an apartment rather than a campsite. We're one of the first cities in the state that came up with an idea what to do with camping. If you behave yourself, you can be in the campsite. If you don't, you're going to have your campsite torn down. So it's one of those things in which we're trying to help. How do we humanely deal with people and manage a problem? And to all of us, right, it's a little uncomfortable when I come up and ask for a dollar, ask for a dollar, ask for a dollar. We're not used to people begging to us. And we've tried to figure out, can you outlaw panhandling? Well, you can't. There's a law, you can't outlaw that. So sometimes we have to get used to urban living, which is sometimes we'll have people do uncomfortable things and we have to say no. We have to say, can we help you get help, or can we do something else to do that? Two elements that we've asked police force engagement. We have our engagement team. It's in a mobile too. So I have people that go out and engage people on the streets and try to see what can we do for you? How can we help you? Where can we get you? When they go to what's called the DEC, the Downtown Engagement Center, they're offered medical care, they're offered psychiatric care, they're offered housing. So the goal of the commission basically is how do we solve the housing issue? That will be number one for the housing issue. And then how do we solve the mental health issue? And I think you guys are addressing the mental health issue today. That's a big issue in all the state, because a lot of times they put everybody out on the street, but then people don't get their medications, they don't get the things they need to help them. And the third element that gets into is addiction. And you'll all be facing that as you grow. I mean, are you going to get into drugs, get addicted to drugs? But I see a higher amount of people that are addicted to drugs that are needle prevalent, and it's difficult because it's a very addictive issue. So how do you deal with that, and how do you treat people with addiction? So you have to hit up people on all those different counts.
I would just really amplify what Commissioner Kolpak said at the beginning. This is a really, really complex issue. It's one that we talk about week in, week out on several fronts. And in addition to the addiction issues, mental health issues, I would add housing affordability. Housing affordability is really not a concern just to Fargo, but a concern across the country as the cost of construction has gone up, as well as the ability to produce units for a growing population. We simply don't have enough units now to take care of our needs, and we need to keep thinking about our horizon line and how to solve this issue and this challenge from here going forward. But I think one of the challenges that we have is just to continue to stay focused on it, because we have both an emergency response, but then you also have this kind of structural and systemic change that you're trying to make at the same time. So how do we make space for both, knowing that we continue to have people week in, week out that need to be there on the front line, serving the people that find themselves in an unhoused situation today, but then also thinking about the thoughtful policies and strategies of housing first and doing everything that we can to invest in those strategies so that we have systemically addressed the issues in not only next year and the year after that, but by the time you get to 2030, 2035, 2040, et cetera. So we're constantly thinking on the horizon line, trying to constantly think about how we improve this condition for the future, because that's truly what I think we can give the future today is our thoughts and our really good leadership on this issue, because it's one that is going to take that kind of diligence and that kind of time and that kind of a commitment.
All right, so now we're gonna open it up to you guys. So FYI members will come around with the little boxes that we used with Fred, and that's what you guys can speak into for any questions. So does anybody have any? Please raise your hand.
I guess this is for the women, but how do you guys deal with issues in politics, like issues that are directly correlating that because you're a woman? Like, how do you deal with those in politics, like sexism? There you go. Like,
All right. I'm the oldest woman up here. I've been in a career since I've been 18 years old, and coming up through the 70s, 80s, and now here we are, 2020. In non-traditional female, most of my jobs have been as a younger woman in male-dominated roles. I was executive director of the Water Coalition that was all male. Executive director of the North Dakota Newspaper Association in Bismarck, that publishers were mostly male. And as an executive at Blue Cross, most of my colleagues were male. I think the approach has definitely changed thanks to generations like yours. I have a son who's 32, and he has a I don't think he has a discriminatory bone in his body or prejudice bone in his body, and I'm so proud of him. He was raised that way, um, but I can tell you sexism in my career has been real, and it has happened, and my approach has always been to do my homework, to rise above it, to not take the bait at times. But when it has happened, and there have been a couple times where it's been pretty overt, to be candid, I've addressed it, and I said that's inappropriate, and you have to have your own agency in those moments to believe and know that you are just as equal as anyone else in the jobs that you have, because you're, and in my case, I can honestly say in my generation, older than yours, Michelle, we had to be more prepared as women as an executive than men did. And that sounds sexist on my end, but that was the truth at the time. I think that's changing. There still is clearly a glass ceiling in many organizations when it comes to sexism. But I don't, me personally, and I think this is palpable to people that I interact with, I don't see it myself. Doesn't matter to me if you're a man or a woman. You know, be competent and know your job, and it's just don't make it an issue. And that seems to have worked for me.
You're not that much older than me. I think, I too, like Commissioner Kolpak, have been in predominantly male fields. I was a news anchor in town for about 17 years. I worked in medical sales for over a decade and have been probably the only female in my company several times. I think just a bit of advice as you go forward, just to believe in yourself and have the confidence and not to take crap from anybody. You do have to be a strong individual, and I think that goes for everyone, whether it's gender, race, what have you, and to believe in yourself and do the job at hand. And as long as you're good at what you do, really there isn't a problem. And I've found that people are just as eager to complain or praise, male or female. It doesn't really matter when you're on the commission. They'll yell at you and give you nasty emails to a female just as easily to a man. So I don't really feel it. I think when I was younger, I used to feel maybe an imbalance in power as far as male and female goes, but I think we've come a long way, and we'll just have to continue to do that.
And the both of them are very well prepared, come to the meetings prepared, and that's really important because that sells it, right? If they argue me facts, I can argue back them facts. But yeah, I think they both do a good job about looking at the facts, look what's going on, and that's how you can better, your leadership is shown by that. But I think, Michelle, you were a little surprised at the emails, that sometimes people are a little ruder than we thought they'd be, but.
Can we have a conversation about civility today? I'm sorry.
Okay, what was the next question that we had? I saw other hands. Okay, you can go ahead and go.
Hi.
Penelope. Oh, give it back.
So, I asked my mom because we were talking about this like a little while ago. And why don't we make our homeless policies similar to Redondo Beach, California? They've essentially eliminated homelessness because they gave help through housing, treatment, and rehabilitation. And though I know some concerns, maybe cost and space, there's a lot of old hotels downtown that aren't in use, a lot of buildings too. Not just downtown, like all over Fargo, but especially downtown you see them. That's where a majority of homelessness is in Fargo. And also, for cost, the woman who was talking about homelessness, I forgot her name, I'm so sorry. She said that we have the money. Well, maybe not have the money, but we could get the money to help these people get rehabilitation, housing, treatment, whatever they need. And my mom works as a legal administrative specialist, so she kind of knows the ins and outs of this. She's been in some sketchy neighborhoods. She's seen it firsthand. And so I'm asking, even if for a little bit, maybe it's not a forever treatment, why not try to implement some of the things that Redondo Beach, California has in Fargo? Thank you for your time.
I don't know if you heard everything that we said earlier, but exactly what you mentioned is what Fargo is working on. The Housing First initiative is putting people in housing. It's not keeping them in camps, and it's not keeping them unhoused. So they are working on that. Jen Fall was here, spoke with many of you, the head of Cass County Public Health. We do have all those many outreach departments and members going out every day to the camps. There's medical facilities in the deck. There is all of that. So what you're speaking to, I don't know what Fargo has everything that you mentioned. There isn't an endless pot of money to support all of these services. So that's why we're talking about looking to the state and looking to the region to help support those services and help to pay for those. Because someone has to pay for it, and that's, you're paying for it out of your taxes. So you can't say on one hand, I want all of these services, and then on the other hand, say, well, I want my taxes reduced. The money has to come from somewhere.
And it may seem like we have a lot of space downtown. We really have a lot of office spaces, not places that people can be in. And the problem with, you got to understand government issues, the feds always have issues about where you house people. So we have to follow all those rules. So when my two commissioners talk, that makes it more expensive. So that's part of what we deal with. We're saying as a team, we'd like the state and the county to get involved and West Fargo to get involved and all of us to put the money together. But we also would like different people to get involved. I mean, one lady wrote in and said, why don't you all take, I was teasing one of the students here. I said, in today's prize, you all get to take one homeless person home today, just because you guys came today, and that wasn't received very well. But, I mean, the reality is that somehow we have 50 to 100 people we have to figure out what to do with. We think we can do it. James Matthews came from Milwaukee. There's a program, they've done that. They've solved the homeless problem, and that's what we plan on doing.
Can I just add too, and especially in North Dakota, you think about we're an aging state overall. Senior housing is a real shortage and a real crisis across the state. And we've recently opened up 2 new affordable senior housing complexes. Each project took 10 years from beginning to building to be livable because of the bureaucracy of combining all of the funding sources, state, federal, complying with all the rules. One of them just opened downtown, and it literally took 10 years from concept to building. So that's the bureaucracy that's around it, the challenges of finding the funding, stitching it all together, and then the oversight and regulations is a real issue.
All right, who has our next question? I think Carson had his hand up first.
Sorry. So I already had the pleasure to talk to three out of the 4 of you, but in some of those conversations, discretionary fund came up, and I was wondering if you could give like a general explanation on like what the discretionary fund is and how it works.
I can take that one. And so I think the question, that wasn't in my group, but I think the question relates to the outside agencies that we support. So as the city of Fargo, every single year in our budget process, we're supporting a number of agencies that exist outside of our jurisdiction. They might be a nonprofit in the space of economic development. They might be in the space of housing. They might be in the space of social services. And so what we're doing in our budgetary support, we every year are setting aside some of our dollars outside of public safety, outside of City Hall, outside of our utility departments, to make sure that we're supporting some organizations that are really doing work on our behalf as a community. I think the good news here in Fargo is that we've got a number of really, really good nonprofits that are doing excellent work. And if not for their work and if not for their contributions, these are services that likely would have to be delivered by local government. And so we're very fortunate in that way. And that I was just talking to some recently that we have executive directors and we have staff in these nonprofits that year in and year out are really doing a lot to try and make Fargo the best community it can. So we really see that as a partnership. And so that's really what discretionary funds are for. The elected officials also have some limited discretionary funds to support maybe organizations or support their attendance at events and things like that throughout the year. But we really try Just last comment, but we really try as the regional leader to be out there and supporting our statewide associations and organizations. It's really important for us to connect, as Commissioner Kolpak said, to the legislature. And so you'll see discretionary funds that we put together to also make sure that we're represented in Bismarck. So when the legislature's meeting, really hard for us to be there every week, let alone every other week. And so we need to have people that are kind of looking after Fargo's agenda for us at the legislature, and so you'll see us do that as well.
So part of what he's asking, Mike, is Red River Rage would like some discretionary funding. Do you have that for him?
I've got a business card with a QR code for the robotics team for Fargo North, so thank you. We had a really nice conversation about that, and I was mentioning to our North students that we will be with Dr. Gandhi and several of FPS individuals tomorrow as well, so I really appreciated learning more about your robotics team. That was really cool.
All right, we will go with the next question. I think we'll go with, oh, you have the mic. I'm so sorry. I totally looked over you.
What are the plans that you guys have or are thinking of that would help Fargo become a more sustainable city?
I think I'll have Bishop Kolpak talk about utilities a little bit, our water plant, our wastewater plant, where we're going with solid waste. I think those are good numbers, what we have.
Yeah, so I'll start and then turn it over to others. I have the 3 utilities: water reclamation, water treatment, solid waste. Excuse me, solid waste is a great example. They have the recycling program, which we have an incredible uptake of people involved in contributing to our recycling program, which saves the landfill, but also reuses all those products that are sent off to be reused. It's like more than 75% uptake once we went to 1 container recycle bins. That's incredible for a city of our size. And then as another example for sustainability, capture methane at the landfill. And then water reclamation, we resell water after it's been cleaned, basically, to other industries. So we reuse water that started out as sewer water, sewer. And so there's a lot of programs like that. We have, and I can make sure that we have it available to you after this, a white paper that explains all of the projects and programs that we've done when it comes to sustainability and resiliency. And I know that we also have a Sustainability and Resiliency Commission under the leadership of Commissioner Strand. We have a member of the Fargo Youth Initiative who serves on that commission and has been very critical to that advancement of their work. And they will be meeting again in December, so it's still an active commission.
And you didn't tell us we have the number 2 water in the nation.
We have the number 1 tasting water in the state. But in the nation, we just won Best Tasting People's Choice Award in the country in California. And this morning, Fred was talking about everywhere he travels now, he can't drink water because he's used to Fargo waters. That's true. We have the best tasting water in the country in Fargo.
All right, we have about 9 minutes left, so we can take about 3 more questions. So,
Hi, I have the thingy, but I was just gonna ask about with the new crime rate, the more increasive crime rate in Fargo was being 789 violent crimes and 5,387 property crimes for the 10,000 people that live here, or residents that live here. Why don't we implement more like things in college where they have like blue boxes, which are basically big like machineries that you can go over and like you feel unsafe in the area, they can go over and call, which basically has like a button that can like, you can press to alert authorities to come to your exact situation or whatever area that you're in to come help you. I don't understand why we don't have more of those like downtown areas, because there's some times where I have gone downtown with my friends and I felt a little unsafe or maybe not the safest. And those, I just feel like those kind of like equipment downtown would help more with overall safety.
No, that's a great question, because we've often talked about downtown, should we do that, or should we have, like, at football games, you'll have, call this number, text this number if you feel unsafe or something's going on. And I think, Mike, that's a discussion we're having with the downtown business people to kind of say, should we have some settlements downtown? Right now, we have a police station in Mercantile, and there's a box there, you can do it there. But you're exactly right, if you're on Broadway Square and you feel unsafe, what do you do and who do you call? So we are working on that. We wouldn't necessarily do the blue blocks, we probably do text, because everybody's got a cell phone. And was there any other, the other thing is the downtown has a lot of cameras, and we talked about the flock system a little bit. With the cameras, we also, if there's a crime or something that happens, oftentimes we can solve it. So most of the assaults we have downtown are people who know each other, but what they don't know is they're oftentimes on camera. We oftentimes can solve it because of that.
All right, we will go to the next question.
Oh, me? What kind of policies have you or are you thinking about putting in place to further help those with disabilities, like those who can't work? Like I know I have a sister who has chronic migraines and she struggles with working, but she's not able to even apply for help and for another year. So like, what policies are you putting in so she has the ability to like live on her own and have a life on her own?
Did I get that one, Mike?
I would, no, thanks for that question. That's a really thoughtful question. I would say that on our end, so what we do primarily in the inspection space and in building codes is make sure that we maintain ADA compliance with anything that we build, anything that we touch. We also have a complaint process if there are ADA complaints out in the public. With our transit system, that is typically a mobility-related complaint that may come in, say if it's somebody who's not able to access bus services, we need to investigate that and make sure that we're remedying that. And so as it relates to other kind of community ADA or other disability awareness pieces, I know there's several really good nonprofits and organizations that are working in that space, whether it's mobility, sight impairment. There are a number of organizations that we certainly stay in touch with, we stay in contact with, although we don't have an enforcement office per se of our own. But that's a great question. I think that's a really thoughtful question, and certainly as a population ages and we have more of our senior population wanting to continue to live and really thrive in the community and find other ways to access city services. So we'll note that. So thank you.
And on social services, typically the county covers that. So the county would have more services that'd be available for her, and then I would be working with them to see what type of services and funding and help they could give to her. So that's kind of where there's a division in city and county, is the county does more of the social services.
All right, we probably have time for one or two more questions.
What strategies are in place to prevent drug use among children and teens in Fargo, and how effective have these measures have been so far?
Any of you two want to take it? So the Public Health Services have a program in which we work with addiction and addiction issues. A few years ago, we had a lot of deaths from fentanyl. We had a lot of people that had drugs that were laced with different drugs. A lot of people died. So we have Narcan throughout. All the police have it. We give away the public health offices, and we have educational programs. So it would be our public health department that basically would work with school departments to try to work on those particular areas of prevention and working with children and younger people that might have the addiction to get addicted, and then what can we do with it. So a lot of that falls on public health education. And we have a pretty big program there because we had a lot of fentanyl deaths about 3 years ago, in which a lot of the different drugs were laced with fentanyl, and people would die from an overdose, basically. So we're working very vigorously because we'd like to get the death count down and not have that happen to our people.
I'll add to that too, because you've heard about the national opioid settlements that were resolved. The city of Fargo and Cass County are getting regular payouts as part of that settlement, and so you will be seeing more of that educational component that will be addressing exactly that issue.
And if you have ideas, please contact Public Health Department. Jen was here, Jen Fowl. She'd be happy to hear from you because we really want to get into the younger people.
Yeah, okay, so I'm sure all of you four are aware about Measure 4, but it's just basically to eliminate property tax. But if this passes, what can you guys do about the services property tax provide the funding for our Fargo systems with?
I'll start on the measure number 4, the elimination of property tax, statewide measure. I will share, and I shared this in the small group, the real concern is it's going to come from the legacy fund, and there is really no long-term solution to make sure that that funding continues, or as cities grow, like the city of Fargo is going to grow, the amount of property tax we'll get will be frozen at the amount that we got this year. And so it means that other local taxes will have to increase in order to provide the same level of service as, you know, the ratio drops as the city grows. But there are a lot of concerns about the elimination of property tax measure and how it will affect cities and schools and counties long-term. I'll just add, and I shared this also in a small group, because there's a lot of people think that the majority of property tax goes to the local municipality or city. More than half goes to the schools of property tax. We get about 20%. It fluctuates a little bit. Then counties, other political subs get the rest. But so we get 20% of the property tax bill today, which isn't our entire revenue source and need to provide the services that we do. But the elimination of that 20% for Fargo would have a huge impact. And this is my last comment. The other concern with this measure, if it passes, is because it'll be freezing the amount of revenue that each municipality across the state gets, city or town or township. It's going to make us compete with other towns, no matter the size of the city or the town, for any extra funding for infrastructure and capital needs and other needs, because we're going to see the shortfalls. So if it does pass, I'm sure we'll be meeting very shortly thereafter to figure out what the game plan will be. And I know the sentiment out there is I get it, inflation's, I get it. I mean, the sentiment's real, but we need a real solution to property tax, and this just has a lot of holes in it, in my opinion.
Because of you, your group here, probably 90% of you are not going to have a house by the time you're 30, so you won't be paying property taxes. I'd be very frightened of this measure, because then what happens is I have to then do fees and other types of ways to raise revenue. So then you're forcing me to actually put more taxes on you, because that's the only way I can make up for the deficit. So a lot of people don't have an answer to, okay, if I get rid of property taxes, what do I replace it with? And that's where the danger lies, because usually it goes in fees. If you go into Minnesota, that's frequently what you see. Your driver's license, your different fees that you get for different things goes up. So anybody in an apartment actually will have higher taxes because we got rid of property taxes. And that's where the rear is. The other issue is, which you brought up, is right now, us as the 3 commissioners, if you don't like what we're doing in safety and police or fire, you complain to us, and then we have to fix it when I do my budget, basically. If we do it this way, then we go to the state all the time, and that's what happens in Minnesota. So you're constantly going to the state and saying, here's what I need in Fargo. So what I'd have to do is move to Bismarck and lobby every day for money. Money, 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 and it's just a terrible waste of time. All the small cities have to do the same. So I don't like the property tax measure, because it's something we're all used to. We all pay property taxes, so we kind of know how that works. But if you replace it with different fees and structure, I think it really hurts the younger people more.
All right, so just due to time, we're gonna have that be our last question. If you have any questions that you want to ask, I'm sure that these people would be more than willing to stick around a couple of minutes, and you guys can ask them individually. We're gonna hear a couple last remarks from the mayor, and then I'm gonna have a couple last words, and then I will dismiss you guys.
Well, thank you, everybody. I've had a great day today. Just, it's wonderful to meet people and so talk to you, and you all are bright. Every one of you are bright and fantastic, right? Right? We pretty much agree with that. But it's so much for us. Mr. Kolpak and I went over for lunch, and the young people here in City Hall. I'm extremely impressed with your group for getting involved in one of the most important issues in our community. youth mental health, and youth homelessness. These are complex issues, and you are tackling them with a head of energy and thoughtfulness. More than ever, we need smart young minds focused on these issues and working with us for solutions. The world is changing so fast that young people like yourselves have insights and experience that older people don't always possess. Older generations need you. We need you to help explain this evolving world to us from the perspective of a young person. That is why your voice is so valuable. When you see an issue, a problem in the community that is widespread, but no leaders are talking about it, I encourage you to speak up and use your voice. Bring the issue to the city commission or other elected officials in the area. We want to know about it. Don't hesitate to reach out by text, email, phone, or person. Both my commissioners respond to all their emails, if it's good or bad, and we'll listen to it. But oftentimes we'll take an idea that you have and we'll look into it and see if we can work with that idea. We definitely like to hear from the public. This is a democracy, and every one of you are part of this. When I'm not serving as mayor of Fargo, I work as a physician. I'm actually a general surgeon, vascular background. I'm familiar with the science of mental health and the toll it takes on the community. I never like to take a patient to surgery unless I knew their mental health part of that. Did they want to recover? Did they want to get better? Did they want to improve? It's the mental health issues that oftentimes we deal with in our community. It has a stigma about it, but it needs to be approached and taken care of. It's especially difficult when it's young people, because when young people have a mental health issue, maybe it's not recognized or taken care of, and there's a way in which people feel shameful about it. So we have to make it something that people, in fact, are willing to reach out and willing to look for support. I encourage you as young people to seek help if you have in times of need. I encourage you to be friends and to be fellow students to others that might need help in those life crises. But hope, it was a very important part of anybody's life. Never give up hope and never give up the hope that you too can help. I love the fact that you're all young and curious about the world. I encourage you to expand your minds, not just through education, but through visiting new and different places. By traveling, you'll find out that this community is shaping you. It has built you into the person that you are. This is your home. And when you're ready to go to college, when you're ready to launch your career, when you're ready to settle down, come back to Fargo. There's so much happening here. This is a vibrant town with many things going on and things that I think you'll enjoy and things which you will consider. But again, I think Fargo is the greatest city in the world. I think we have a lot to offer, and I think part of that reason is because of you. Each and every one of you can contribute to the beauty of our community and what makes us good as a community. And that is Fargo is a great place to work, to live, and to be a part of. And we please would love to embrace you to help us in different problems we have. Any suggestions and any type of solutions you come up with, feel free to share. And my commissioners love emails, so send them all the time. So thank you very much.
Okay, so one last thing. On behalf of Fargo Youth Initiative, we thank each and every one of you for coming out today and supporting, learning about topics that are impacting your community as a whole and supporting Impact Fargo. We will have goodie bags where you guys registered, and then you guys are free to go. So thank you guys again.
Thank you.